My name is Evelyn Harper, and on the night of my husband Walter's funeral, as the last mourners trickled out into the Montana chill, his attorney slipped a sealed envelope into my hand. "Watch what they pick," he whispered. "That's who they are now." I stared at that envelope under the porch light, my fingers trembling, wondering if Walter had seen this coming all along. But the truth is, nothing could have prepared me for the storm about to break over our family. You ever feel like your whole world is built on sand, and one wave could wash it all away? That's where I was, standing in the doorway of our old ranch house, the weight of 50 years of marriage pressing down like a Montana blizzard. Hey folks, before we jump back into this captivating tale, take a quick moment to drop a comment below. Share where you're tuning in from today. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button on the Ageless Bold Stories channel. Together, we're forging a vibrant community of dreamers who truly understand that life's most epic chapters can unfold at any stage. All right, let's keep the adventure rolling. Let me take you back to how it all started, because if I'm going to tell this story right, we need to rewind a bit. Walter and I met in 1958, right here in Bozeman. He was fresh out of the army, still carrying that bronze star from Korea in his pocket like a lucky charm. I was working at the diner on Main Street, pouring coffee for ranch hands and dreaming of something more than endless winters. He walked in one rainy afternoon, ordered black coffee and a slice of apple pie, and by the time he left, he'd asked for my number. We built our life from scratch, bought this 3-bedroom ranch-style home on Gallatin Road with a VA loan, raised 3 kids in it, watched the Bridger Mountains turn gold every fall. Walter always said, "Earn every dollar, build every dream with your own hands." That was his mantra, etched into every fence post he mended, every engine he rebuilt. But the truth is cruel sometimes. Walter collapsed in the barn behind our house one crisp October morning. He was out there fixing a fence post, the kind of chore he'd done 1,000 times. His heart just gave out, like an old truck engine finally seizing up. I found him there, tools scattered in the dirt, his flannel shirt soaked with dew. The paramedics said it was quick, but quick doesn't erase the image burned into my mind. His face peaceful, almost like he was napping under the big sky. We buried him 3 days later at the cemetery overlooking the valley, under a stand of aspens turning yellow. The service was simple, just like Walter wanted. No fancy flowers or choirs, just family, friends, and the folks from town who'd known him forever. Our son Mason rolled in 30 minutes late, his boots polished to a shine, his pickup truck idling outside with the valet tag still dangling from the mirror. Mason's always been the go-getter, the one who left for the city lights of Billings after high school, built a real estate business flipping properties. "Sorry, Mom," he said, hugging me quick. Traffic was a bear. But I could smell the fresh aftershave, see the way his eyes darted around, already calculating. Then there was our daughter Paige. She arrived in her SUV, hair in fresh salon waves, dressed in Lululemon like she was heading to yoga after. She air-kissed my cheek, murmuring, "Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry." But it felt like we were at a charity brunch, not saying goodbye to her father. Paige lives in Missoula now, runs a boutique selling organic skincare and essential oils. She's got that polished life, husband in tech, 2 kids in private school. But something about her always feels a little distant, like she's performing for an audience that isn't there. And then there's Cole, our grandson, 19 years old with grease under his nails from the auto shop where he apprentices. He took 3 city buses to get to the funeral, his work shirt tucked in neat, eyes red from holding back. Cole's story breaks my heart every time I think of it. 8 years ago, we lost our eldest son Travis and his wife Jenna to a drunk driver on black ice. Travis was just 35, Jenna 33. and they left behind 11-year-old Cole. Walter and I took him in, raised him in this house like our own. He ate oatmeal at our kitchen table every dawn, helped Walter in the barn after school. Cole's got Walter's spirit, stubborn, hardworking. He refused any handouts for college, rents a one-room apartment above a laundromat downtown, clocks 60 hours a week at the shop, and studies diesel mechanics at night school. I remember Easter a couple years back, when Mason was grilling ribs in the backyard. He clapped Cole on the shoulder and said, "Granddad would buy you a truck tomorrow if you asked. Quit the martyr act, kid." Cole just wiped the sauce off his fingers, looked Mason dead in the eye, and replied, "Granddad built his fleet from scrap. I'm doing the same." That shut Mason up quick. Walter beamed with pride that day, but he never said a word. At the funeral, Cole stood beside the pine casket for 7 full minutes, his knuckles white on the rail, tears cutting clean tracks through the shop dust on his cheeks. My heart clenched watching him. Tim that lie, like a fist squeezing inside my chest. He whispered something I couldn't hear, then straightened up like a soldier. Meanwhile, Mason and Paige huddled by the guest book table, whispering about the ranch's back 40 acres. That's prime riverfront land, appraised north of $2 million. That land raised all 3 kids. Travis learned to rope calves there. Mason broke his wrist falling off the hayloft one summer. Paige had her sweet 16 bonfire under the stars. But now, they spoke in percentages and closing costs, like it was just another deal. "We could subdivide," Mason muttered. "Turn it into condos." Paige nodded, checking her phone. "Yeah, the market's hot right now." After the burial, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Mason and Paige left before the potluck even cooled. "Gotta get back for the kids," Paige said, hugging me loosely. Mason promised to call, but his truck was already revving. Cole stayed, though. He rolled up his sleeves and scrubbed every casserole dish until the sink shone, even though I told him to go home. "It's what Granddad would do," he said softly, drying his hands on a towel. We sat on the porch after, sharing a cup of tea, the stars coming out one by one. "He taught me everything," Cole murmured. "How to fix an engine, how to stand tall." I nodded, fighting back tears, but deep down, a knot twisted in my gut. What would Walter think of how things were turning out? 3 days later, the house felt empty without him. The attorney, Grant Sullivan, silver hair, president of the Montana Bar, waited until everyone else had gone, then handed me that sealed envelope. "Walter left this for you, Evelyn. Instructions inside." I opened it alone in the kitchen, the clock ticking like a heartbeat. The letter was in Walter's handwriting, steady as ever. "Eve, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But I need you to see who they've become. The will's a test, an auction. Watch what they pick. That's who they are now." My breath caught, not breathing notable for a second. What kind of game was this? Walter, always the planner, but this felt like a twist of the knife. The reading was set for 3 mornings after the funeral. We gathered in Grant's pine-paneled office overlooking the Bridger Mountains, the air thick with that lawyerly smell of leather and old books. Me, Mason, Paige, and Cole. 4 of us around a mahogany table, coffee going cold in our cups. Grant cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses. "Walter's estate totals $3.1 million, but he didn't want a simple split. This is a blind auction. Each of you gets $150,000 in bidding chips, non-transferable, non-cashable. You bid on the lots anonymously. Highest takes it. Unspent chips go back to the pot, divided equally at the end." I glanced around. Mason leaned forward, eyes sharp. Paige fiddled with her necklace, a diamond Walter gave her for her 30th birthday. Cole sat straight, hands folded, looking like he was at a job interview. Grant listed the lots one by one. First, the 1880s farmhouse on 10 acres along Gallatin Road. Our home, Appraised at $1.2 million, minimum bid $120,000. That's where we raised the kids, where Walter proposed on the front porch, where Cole grew from a scared boy to a young man. It's more than walls, I thought, but kept quiet. Second, Walter's restored classics, a 69 Bronco, 74 Scout, 62 Corvette, total $480,000, minimum $120,000. He spent weekends in the garage with those, teaching Cole how to turn a wrench. Mason used to beg for rides as a kid, but now he probably saw dollar signs. Third, the full woodworking shop, lathe, planer, hand-forged chisels, $22,000 value, minimum $8,000. Walter built our dining table in there, carved toys for the grandkids. Simple things, but full of heart. Fourth, the blue chip portfolio, Apple, Berkshire Hathaway, Vanguard funds, market value $280,000, minimum $140,000. That's the money side, the security Walter built over decades. And then, the fifth lot, Walter's private trove. Handwritten ranch logs from 45 years, family albums yellowed with time, his bronze star from Korea, his grandfather's silver pocket watch, love letters we exchanged in 1958, and his wedding band, still warm from his finger. Appraised at $0, minimum bid $140,000. If no one bids, it's incinerated, burned to ash. The room went silent. My chest tightened. Nghen Kung like a stone lodged there. Incinerated? Those were our memories, our life story. Mason shifted, murmuring, "That's steep for junk." Paige's eyes widened. "Dad wouldn't really—" Cole stared at the floor, fists clenched. Grant explained the rules. Bids submitted in sealed envelopes, revealed at once. Auction starts tomorrow. Walter wanted you to choose what matters, he said. Not just take. As we left, the mountains loomed like judges. Mason and Paige huddled in the parking lot, whispering. Cole walked me to my car. "Gran, this feels wrong," he said. "Those letters? The watch. That's him." I nodded, but inside, a storm brewed. What if they bid on the land, the cars, the stocks, and let the trove burn? Would that reveal who they are now, like Walter said? My heart raced, a mix of grief and dread. Tri Tim Rock Toke, like fabric tearing at the seams. How had we come to this? That night, alone in our bed, I pored over the love letters from the trove, Walter's words from 1958. Eve, you're my anchor in this wild world. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unrelenting. But the real pain hit when I imagined them gone, flames licking the pages. Noi Jiao Nu Dao cat, sharp and unrelenting, slicing through every memory. The next day dawned clear, but tension hung heavy. We gathered back at Grant's office, chips in hand. Mason arrived first, confident smile. "Let's get this done." Paige followed, notebook in lap. Cole slipped in last, nodding to me. Grant passed out the bid sheets. First lot, the farmhouse. Bids flew. Silent, but I could feel the energy. When revealed, Mason won with $140,000. "Prime location," he said, but his eyes avoided mine. Second, the cars. Paige took them at $130,000. "For the kids," she claimed, but I saw the gleam. Resale value. Third, the shop. Cole bid minimum, $8,000. No one else touched it. "For the tools," he whispered. Granddad's hands built that. Fourth, the portfolio. Mason and Paige dueled, Mason winning at $150,000 flat. "Smart investment," he grinned. And then, the trove. My breath hitched. Bids. Mason, 0. Paige, 0. Cole, $140,000, his entire stack. The room exploded. "What the hell, kid?" Mason snapped. "That's worthless." Cole stood, voice steady. "It's everything. The logs, the metal, the letters. That's Granddad." Paige rolled her eyes. "Sentimental crap. We could have split the cash." But Grant held up a hand. Per Walter's instructions, no bid on the trove means incineration, unless someone meets minimum. Cole had. He took it all. Mason stormed out, Paige trailing. "This is bullshit," he muttered. Cole turned to me, eyes shining. "Gran, I couldn't let it burn." I hugged him, tears flowing. But as we left, a new dread settled. Walter's letter echoed, "Watch what they pick." Now I knew. But what comes next? The unspent chips divided, $10,000 each after Cole's all in. Mason and Paige got their shares, but resentment simmered. That evening, as the sun set over the ranch, I sat on the porch, Walter's wedding band in my palm. Konjian Bung no inside me. Not at them, but at how life twists us. You ever wonder if the people you raised are strangers now? If all those years meant nothing? But the story doesn't end here. There's more. A bigger twist Walter left, one that could shatter us all. What if the auction was just the beginning? Liu Jai Kofai La Dao Cham Het. Hei Chi Moi La Koi Jiao. If you've ever felt that sting of family betrayal, drop a period in the comments. Just a dot. So I know you're here with me. And if you're wondering what happens when secrets come out, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You won't want to miss part 2. It's going to hit harder than you think. Share this if it reminds you of your own story. Maybe someone needs to hear it tonight. Thanks for listening, folks. Until next time. As the January wind howled outside our old ranch house, I clutched Walter's letter in my hands, his words echoing like a ghost in the empty rooms. Watch what they pick. That's who they are now. I'd barely slept since the will reading, my mind replaying the sealed bids we'd submitted. But the real auction, the live one where paddles would rise and fall like judgments, was set for the next day. It wasn't just about money. Walter had designed it that way. A blind start turning into a public reveal at the community center. You know that feeling when you sense a storm brewing, dark clouds gathering over the mountains? That's how it felt, sitting there in the dim light, wondering if my family would tear itself apart under those fluorescent bulbs. But the cruel truth is, sometimes the people you love most become strangers right before your eyes. The morning of the auction dawned gray and sleety, the kind of Montana weather that seeps into your bones. I picked up Cole from his apartment above the laundromat, the wipers slapping rhythmically against the windshield as we drove downtown. He stared out at the blurred world, his young face etched with worry lines that shouldn't be there yet. "Gran," he said softly, breaking the silence. "Did Granddad write in those logs every Sunday?" I smiled despite the ache in my chest. "Sunrise to coffee cold?" I replied, echoing Walter's old routine. "You used to sit on the bench in the barn and watch him, remember? Pencil scratching away, logging every calf born, every fence mended. Said it kept him honest with himself." Cole nodded, his fingers drumming on his knee. "Yeah, I remember. Felt like he was writing our history." We fell quiet then, the sleet tapping like impatient fingers. But inside, my heart twisted. Tim that lie, a sharp pang that made breathing hard. What if those logs ended up meaning nothing to the others? What if Walter's test exposed fractures we'd all ignored for years? The community center on Main Street was packed tighter than a cattle pen at market time. Folding chairs scraped against the linoleum floor, the fluorescent lights humming overhead like a swarm of angry bees. The lots were displayed on numbered tables at the front, the farmhouse deed in a frame, photos of the classics gleaming under spotlights, the woodworking tools laid out like artifacts, the portfolio printouts stacked neatly, and that open crate for Lot 5, Walter's Trove, with the logbooks stacked like sacred scripture, the bronze star pinned to velvet, the silver pocket watch ticking faintly, our love letters tied with faded ribbon, and his wedding band catching the light. Grant Sullivan stood at the podium, gavel in hand, his silver hair catching the glare. "This is a hybrid auction," he announced, voice steady as the prairie wind. Sealed minimum set the floor. Now we go live. Highest paddle wins. Ties broken by birth order. Oldest first. Mason and Paige sat together in the front row, their heads bent close. I caught Mason's eyes flicking to Paige. They'd already divvied up the farmhouse and the classics in the parking lot yesterday. I could tell by the smug nods. Me? I sat in the back with Cole, my hands clasped tight in my lap, watching like Walter had instructed. The air was thick with tension, folks from town whispering, old friends, neighbors who'd known Walter since Korea. But this wasn't just an estate sale. It was a reckoning. We started with Lot 1, the 1880s farmhouse on 10 acres along Gallatin Road. Grant rapped the gavel. Appraised at $1.2 million, sealed minimum met, bidding opens at $120,000. Mason shot his paddle up first, voice booming, $150,000. Paige countered immediately, matching him dollar for dollar. The room murmured, siblings going head-to-head already? Grant paused, checking the rules. Tie at $150,000. Birth order applies. Mason, as the elder, takes it. Mason grinned, leaning back like he'd just closed a big deal. Paige's lips tightened, but she said nothing. That land, where Travis had learned to rope, where Mason himself had broken his wrist tumbling from the hayloft as a boy, it was his now, reduced to a paddle wave. Next up, Lot 2, Walter's restored classics, the 69 Bronco, 74 Scout, 62 Corvette. Total value $480,000, minimum cleared. Paige didn't waste time, she raised her paddle high. $150,000 flat. Silence followed, no counters from Mason or Cole. Grant nodded. Sold to Paige. She flashed a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Those vehicles. Walter had spent countless weekends under the hood with Cole, grease on their hands, laughter echoing in the garage. Now they'd probably end up in some collector's showroom, or flipped for profit. Lot 3, the woodworking shop, tools worth $22,000, minimum $8,000. Cole cleared his throat, his paddle trembling just a bit as he lifted it. $8,000. The room waited, but no one else moved. Sold, Grant said. Cole exhaled, a small victory. Those chisels, that lathe, they were extensions of Walter's hands, the ones that had built our dining table, carved wooden horses for the grandkids. At least they'd stay with someone who understood. Then came Lot 4, the blue chip portfolio. Apple, Berkshire, Vanguard, $280,000 market value, minimum $140,000. Every head swiveled to Cole. After his shop bid, he had $142,000 left in chips. The tension ratcheted up, like a spring coiling tight. Mason stood suddenly, turning to face Cole across the aisle. "Kid, listen," he said, voice low but carrying. "I'll give you $140,000 cash for these chips Monday morning. Walk out with $280,000 total. Be smart." Paige chimed in, her tone pleading but edged. "Buy a condo, Cole. Quit that grease pit of a job. Start living." Cole's gaze slid to Lot 5's open crate, those logs calling to him like old friends. The room held its breath. You could hear the fluorescent hum intensify, or maybe that was just my pulse pounding. Cole shook his head slowly. "Pass," he said, voice firm. The room exhaled in shock, a collective gasp rippling through the chairs. Mein Guchen Hen Kung, like a weight pressing down, making it hard to draw air. How could he walk away from security? But I knew. Deep down, I knew. Walter's test was working its cruel magic. Finally, Lot 5, Walter's private trove. Grant lifted each item one by one, his voice flat as the endless prairie. First, a logbook, pages yellowed and filled with Walter's precise script. Then the bronze star, dull with age but heavy with honor, the grandfather's silver pocket watch, chain dangling. Our love letters from 1958, ink faded but words eternal. And his wedding band, simple gold that had circled his finger for 50 years. Appraised at zero, Grant intoned. Minimum $140,000. No bid and per instructions. It burns. Cole raised his paddle without hesitation. $142,000. All he had left. Paige shrieked, jumping to her feet. That's a down payment on a life. What are you thinking? Mason's face reddened, veins bulging. You're torching your future for scrap paper, boy. Cole met their stares, calm as a still pond. Paper that taught me how to be a man. The gavel cracked like thunder. Sold to Cole. In that moment, my tri Tim Rock Toak, torn between pride and sorrow. Pride for Cole, who saw the true value. Sorrow for Mason and Paige, who'd chosen shiny things over soul. The room buzzed as Cole cradled the crate like a newborn, pushing past his aunt and uncle without a word, stepping out into the biting January wind. I followed, the sleet stinging my face, but inside, a fire kindled. Kanjian Bung no, not at the kids, but at how Walter's plan had stripped us bare. We drove back in silence at first, the crate secured in the back seat like a precious cargo. Gran, Cole said finally, you think Granddad knew this would happen? I sighed, the wipers still slapping away the sleet. He knew people, Cole, better than most. Said earning your way builds character, but maybe he wanted to see if we'd lost ours along the way. Back at the house, we unpacked the trove on the kitchen table. I ran my fingers over the logbooks, memories flooding back. Walter at dawn, coffee steaming, jotting notes while the sun rose over the bridgers. Cole flipped through one, his eyes lighting up at entries about teaching him to fix engines. Look here, boys got steady hands. Proud day. We laughed, but it was bittersweet, like honey laced with salt. Meanwhile, Mason called that afternoon, voice clipped over the phone. Mom, that kid's an idiot. We could have split everything fair. Now he's got junk and we're stuck with resentment. Paige texted, tell Cole he's welcome to the cars if he changes his mind. This family's fracturing. But I didn't reply right away. Walter's words haunted me. That's who they are now. Greed over legacy. Flash over foundation. Days blurred into weeks. The Montana winter deepening. Cole moved the trove to his tiny apartment, setting up a shelf like a shrine. He visited often, helping me sort the house. Now Mason's, but I had lifetime rights per the will. One evening, as we sipped tea on the porch, bundled in blankets, he confessed. I almost bid on the stocks, Gran. For a second I thought about the easy life. But those letters, the watch, it's like Granddad's still here, guiding. I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. You chose heart over wallet. That's rare these days. But inside, doubt gnawed. What if Walter's test wasn't done? The unspent chips had been divided, $10,000 each in cash equivalents. But whispers from town said Mason was already listing the farmhouse, Paige shopping for upgrades on the classics. Family dinners, canceled, holidays, tense texts at best. One night, alone in bed, I reread our love letters. Eve, in this wild world, you're my steady ground. Nuk mat lun dai, man jang noi hoe moi. How had we raised kids who chased the horizon instead of cherishing the soil underfoot? But tro thay, just when I thought the dust had settled, a knock came at the door one stormy evening. It was Grant, envelope in hand. Evelyn, Walter left a codicil, a final clause, triggers if the trove was bid on. My breath caught. Inside, instructions for a second auction, but this time for the back 40 acres, the riverfront land worth millions. Bidders? Only those who'd valued the intangible, meaning Cole, and maybe me. Mason and Paige, locked out. The revelation hit like a blizzard, Nguchen Kung again, but this time with a spark of hope. Walter, you clever old fox, you'd planned for redemption or ruin. You ever feel like fate's got one more card up its sleeve just when you think the game's over? What if this new twist forces us all to face the mirrors we've avoided? But that's for next time. The storm's just brewing. If this chapter stirred something in you, drop a single word in the comments. Legacy or loss? I'd love to hear your take. And don't forget to hit subscribe and that bell. Part 3 is coming, with twists that'll leave you breathless. Share if you've got a family story like this. Someone out there might need it. Thanks for joining me, friends. Stay warm out there. As the storm rattled the windows of our old ranch house that fateful evening, Grant Sullivan stood on my porch, his coat dusted with snow, holding out that thick manila envelope like it was a live wire. "Evelyn," he said, his voice cutting through the wind. "Walter's codicil activates only if the trove found a bidder who saw its worth. Cole did. This is for you both. Read it carefully." My fingers numb from the cold, I took it inside, where Cole was already waiting by the fire, the crate from Lot 5 open on the coffee table. We'd glanced at the contents earlier, but something told me we hadn't scratched the surface. You know that moment when you sense the ground shifting under your feet, like an earthquake rumbling far off in the mountains? That's how it felt, staring at Walter's handwriting on the envelope. For the one who chose heart over gold. But the cruel irony is, sometimes the biggest rewards come wrapped in the simplest packages, and not everyone gets to unwrap them. We didn't open the envelope right away. Instead, that night, with the storm howling like a banshee, Cole and I bundled up and trudged out to Walter's barn, lanterns swinging in our hands, the air thick with sawdust and the faint scent of motor oil that always lingered there. It felt right, somehow, to dive into the trove where Walter had spent so many hours tinkering, teaching, dreaming. The cold bit at our knuckles as we settled on hay bales, the crate between us like a treasure chest from some old Western tale. "Gran," Cole said, his breath fogging the air. "Let's start with the logs. Granddad always said they held the real story." I nodded, my heart pounding with a mix of grief and anticipation. The first log we pulled out was from 1977, Walter's neat script filling the pages like a road map of our lives. "Travis caught his first trout today, 6 inches, proud as if it were a marlin," he wrote, and I could picture it clear as day. Little Travis, all of 5 years old, beaming by the river on that back 40, Walter kneeling beside him with a net. We laughed softly, tears mixing with the chuckles, as we flipped through more. Entries about Mason's first bike ride without training wheels, Paige's school play where she forgot her lines but stole the show anyway. Those logs weren't just records. They were Walter's love letters to our family, etched in ink and time. But then we hit the harder pages, the ones that made my chest tighten, Nguchen Kung, like a vice squeezing slow and relentless. The entry from the night Travis died 8 years back. "Black ice took my boy and his Jenna tonight. If the Lord needs a foreman up there, take me instead. Left Cole with us. Got to be strong for the kid." My voice broke reading it aloud. And Cole reached over, his calloused hand on mine. "He never showed that pain," Cole whispered. "Always just kept going." We sat there in the lantern glow, the barn creaking around us, letting the words sink in. Walter had poured his soul into those books, every joy and heartbreak catalogued like fence posts marking the years. Deeper in, we found the final page, dated just 10 days before his heart gave out. "Whoever spends $140K on dust and ink, drive to Grant tomorrow. Envelope waits." My breath caught short. Kong tho noi, for a heartbeat. Cole's eyes widened. "Gran, that's us." He knew someone might see the value. We stared at each other, the storm outside mirroring the whirlwind inside me. Walter, you sly old rancher, always one step ahead. But what envelope? Grant's codicil, still sealed in my pocket, suddenly felt heavier than lead. The next morning broke clear, the snow glittering like diamonds under a rare winter sun. Cole and I drove to Grant's office at Sunday noon, the Bridger Mountains standing sentinel as always. The place was quiet. No other clients. Just the tick of a wall clock and the smell of fresh coffee. Grant ushered us in, his silver hair catching the light, and slid another thick manila envelope across the desk. "Walter prepared this contingency," he said, "only for the Trove's bidder." Inside, in Walter's familiar scrawl, was a deed to an undisclosed 200-acre mountain parcel up in the Absarokas, complete with timber rights, a pristine creek for water, and views that could steal your breath. Appraised at $4.4 million, tucked away as a surprise asset, hidden from the main estate until now, and pinned to it, a letter. "You chose me before you knew the prize. The land is yours because character can't be bought. Build on it or hold it, but earn it every day. Love, Walter." My hands shook as I read it aloud, tears blurring the words. Tim that lie. A sweet ache this time, like finding a lost heirloom in the attic. Cole leaned back, stunned. 4.4 million? Hidden in the Trove? Grant nodded. Walter bought it quietly in the 90s after a good cattle year. Never developed it. Said it was for the one who'd value roots over riches. We drove home in a daze, the deed folded carefully in Cole's glove box. But tro treothe, peace didn't last long. At dusk, as the sky turned bruise purple, Mason and Paige burst through my front door without knocking, their faces blizzard red from the cold, or maybe fury. 4 million hidden in trinkets? Mason roared, pacing the living room like a caged bull. Dad stashed a fortune in that junk crate and the kid walks away with it? I blocked the hallway, my voice steadier than I felt. Walter hid it so love would outbid greed. It did. Cole chose the memories, not the money. That's the test your father set. Paige's eyes flashed, her salon waves disheveled from the wind. "We'll sue. This is fraud. Hiding assets like that." But even as she said it, my phone buzzed. Grant's email, already sent to all of us. "Ironclad," it read. "Walter's codicil filed publicly Monday. Contests won't hold. It's all in the will's fine print." Mason deflated, slumping into a chair while Paige stormed to the window, staring out at the darkening fields. The room hung heavy with unspoken regrets, the kind that fester like untreated wounds. In the weeks that followed, life unraveled and rewove in unexpected ways. 2 weeks later, Mason flipped the farmhouse, $1.45 million cash to some out-of-state developer looking for a vacation spot. He called to tell me, voice clipped. "Moving on, Mom. Billing suits me better anyway." I stood on the porch as the sold sign went up, a pang in my chest. Noi Jiao Nu Dao Cat. Sharp and lingering. That house had held our laughter, our fights, our everything. Now it was just another transaction. Paige auctioned off the Scout and Corvette quick, pocketing a tidy sum, but kept the Bronco for her Instagram feeds, posing in it at scenic overlooks, captioning, "Vintage vibes from Dad." She texted me photos, but they felt hollow, like echoes in an empty barn. "Miss you, Mom," one said, but she hadn't visited since the blow-up. Cole, though? He still clocks in at the auto shop at 5 a.m. sharp, grease up to his elbows, learning diesel mechanics one bolt at a time. The deeds folded in his locker, a quiet promise. Developers started circling almost immediately, offers rolling in at $4.6 million, then 4.8, sweet-talking about resorts and subdivisions. Cole hangs up every time, polite but firm. "Not for sale," he tells them. "Granddad earned it his way. I'll do the same." Every Sunday, he hauls another crate of tools home on the city bus, bits from the woodworking shop he won, piecing together the workshop Walter always dreamed he'd build. We've started clearing a spot on the mountain parcel, just him and me, hammering nails under the big sky. One honest splinter at a time, Cole says, echoing Walter's old line. And in those moments, as the sun sets gold over the timber, I feel Walter with us. His spirit in the wind, his lessons in the land. Looking back, Walter's test wasn't just about dividing assets, it was about revealing souls. Mason and Paige chased the shine, and it left them hollow. Cole chose the heart, and it rewarded him beyond measure. Me? I got to see my family for who they are, warts and all, and find peace in the pieces that remain. You ever wonder if the choices we make echo forever, like ripples in a Montana stream? What if Walter's final gift wasn't the land, but the clarity to build on what's true? But as the seasons turn, one question lingers. Will greed pull Mason and Paige back, or will time heal the rifts? For now, the mountains stand silent, holding their secrets. If this tale tugged at your heartstrings, share your thoughts below. What would you have bid on? Drop a heart or land in the comments. And if you've followed this far, hit that subscribe and bell for more stories that hit home. Share if it reminds you of your own family twists. Someone might need the reminder tonight. Thanks for listening, dear friends. Until the next story unfolds.